this area, you got to use your imagination. This was a neighborhood, and at the time was a, middle class, upper middle class neighborhood. Teachers, pharmacists, pastors. So it was a, quote unquote well-to-do area, but their homes all around here. Okay. Early into the Montgomery bus boycott, Dr. King's home is bombed. Dr. King is actually at a mass meeting, and he's leading that meeting. Coretta is here with their newborn daughter, Yolanda, and a church member. And they're seated in the parlor area behind these windows. And as was unfortunately customary during that time, they hear something land on the porch outside. And instinctively, when they hear something land on the porch, they move quickly into the interior of the house, and the explosion happens. Okay? The explosion is a significant explosion. It blows out not only the windows here, but all down the street and across the street. Okay? So had Coretta and had their daughter and church member remained in that area, they certainly would have, most likely would have died, if nothing else would have been seriously injured. Okay? Right here on the porch, and it's closed, you actually see one of the holes where the bomb was planted. This is the crowd. Where you're standing right here is where the community gathered. Some of them gathered with guns, right? You've attacked the pastor. They were ready to defend the pastor. And Dr. King, from in front of his porch, right where we're standing, encouraged them all to go home. Otherwise, it would have made for a very unfortunate experience here in Montgomery.
What parallels do you see with the Freedom Riders and the youth who were doing this work in civil rights in comparison to today? Or not comparison, parallel to today?
It's definitely parallel. Number one, because a lot of things are driven by younger people. I mentioned in earlier talks that I'm loving the Gen Z people because they had that same age group of being in their 20s and early 20s and determined to make sure that they have a better future. And this is the way that they do it, through voting and through talking. This was very much like it was with the civil rights movement, because people were at that same age group and just determined not to be stopped, to achieve the goal that was fair and for everybody, and so that everybody could live peacefully and in harmony. And that's what desperately we're in need of today.
Do you think there's anything that's missing from the youth today who are doing these type of movements and energizing what's happening in our social and political climate, or something that you think is amazing and you love what you're seeing?
I think it all depends on, as I said before, I've gotten into being generation conscious. Mm-hmm. And so I'm seeing more of, as I said, that Gen Z generation that's has goals. They're pushing for goals, for others, for the whole community, for the whole, in our instance, for the whole race, for others. Some of the other generations, maybe even a little bit ahead of them, which would be like the millennial generation, so seem to be out for doing things for self. Which is a difference, and I don't want anybody to come back and attack me on that, because I do have a family that's in that generation, but also as a professor, I've had the experience of teaching various generations, so I've seen what their heart, what they're driven by, and what they're wanting to do. So from that standpoint, I would say that Gen Z seem to be more focused on all versus one.
What words do you have that you want to share that will give us hope for people like me who've done community organizing, who stood in the road in front of police, for people who are in leadership trying to lead organizations like Vote Common Good to share these stories? what final word or hope would you like to offer?
Stay visible. Stay visible. Stay on camera. Stay on media so that people can see who you are and hear your message. And once they understand your message, make it clear. Be seen. They'll come around.
But you see, everything circles the bus boycott, the Selma to Montgomery march comes the same way. Like all of this intersection, so much history happens. And we're going straight down to talk about more history. That's where the slave auction was held. We'll circle back around to it. It's at the Circle Fountain there.
Yeah.
We're going to stop by there. That was the auction.
And just to note, we're passing the Alabama Supreme Court right now, and so I was sharing with the other group as well. Not this courthouse, but the federal courthouse is where Frank Johnson was, who is the judge who signed the injunction to keep George Wallace from preventing the march from Selma to Montgomery. So when Ms. Valda was talking about Dr. King and they went to Frank Johnson, that group went to Frank Johnson because they had filed the injunction so that they could get a judicial order that allowed them to actually proceed with the march. So that happens up the street.
So there's one street, all this history. You can tell the story of America off the street. You have the banks, you have the insurance companies, and you have the slave depots. And then what would happen, this happened all across the country, Charleston, it happened in Philadelphia, everywhere there's a port. When it was time for sale, you would have the march of the slaves. These chains, these are auction chains, jingling down the street. Okay? And individuals, not just from Montgomery, but across the area, would gather here, and enslaved people would go to the highest bidder. Okay? So we are literally standing where families were torn apart and where humanity was purchased for top dollar. In 1965, 50,000 people marched up this road to the Alabama State Capitol to tell George Wallace that we demand the right to vote. It is on these streets that the right to vote for all Americans was won. Dr. King, 50,000 individuals declaring to America, now is the time that we be treated as first-class American citizens. As we are traveling on this road, we're going to be passing through what was called Bloody Lowndes County. And Bloody Lowndes County was the place where the Klan in Alabama was most active, and where the lynchings in Alabama were most numerous. And so this adds context to the experience that in the march from Selma to Montgomery, the people marched through the most dangerous rural land of Alabama. And they did so with many people telling them not to make the march. As we travel, you'll see many wooded areas, you'll see barns. There were all type of areas for snipers to lay in wait. And even the federal government that tried to provide protection during the march told the marchers, we can't protect you from every threat on this road. It's important to note that it's on this road that a white woman from Detroit, Michigan, Viola Louiso, is killed as she's driving back marchers to Selma. So this is a notorious stretch plan, and countless people were disappeared on this road. So it's very important to remember, even as we're on the road, what they were willing to sacrifice for the right to vote.